So that says the pasuk, Vayet Moshe es yado al Hashemayim. And Moshe stuck his hand up towards the heaven. Vayir choshech hafela b'chol aretz Mitzrayim. And there was a darkness in the land of Egypt for Shloshes Yamim, for 3 days. Rashi says, Vayir choshech hafela Shloshes Yamim. Rashi says, Choshech shel ofel. It was a darkness. Yeah, no, it's a longer Dibur Maskil. It's Vayir choshech va'afela. The whole Dibur Maskil is b'chol aretz Mitzrayim Shloshes Yamim.
There's one before that, no? Oh, that's
no.
French.
No. Choshech shel ofel. There was a darkness of gloom. Shelo ra'u ish et achiv otam shloshi yamim. Because nobody was able to see their brother for 3 days. That's a very powerful phrase. No one could see their brother. Okay. What does that mean? Shelo kamu ish mitachtav. Excuse me. And there was another darkness, another 3 days of double darkness. Then nobody could arise from their place. Meaning to say, why do they say it was a double 3 days? Because it says the words 3 days twice. So therefore, since it says 3 days twice, therefore, for that reason, we say it was a double 3 day period. Shelo kamu ish mitachtav, and during this period, nobody could rise up. Yoshev and Yachol Amod v'Omed and Yachol Ashov. If somebody was sitting, he couldn't stand, and somebody was standing, couldn't sit. So we see from here, I think, a powerful idea. What is darkness? Darkness is somebody who is inflexible. Somebody who is, if they're standing, they can't sit. If they're sitting, they can't stand. That's the height of inflexibility. That's darkness. So that's, if you're not a flexible person, that's the height of darkness. So Rashi says, why did Hashem bring the plague of darkness upon them? Meaning to say, the Maharal says the real question is, why of all the plagues is the plague of darkness the only one that has 2 separate stages, 2 separate periods of 3 days, that during the first 3 days, nobody could see their brother. But in the second 3 days, you couldn't stand up or sit down. What's the reasoning behind that? So Rashi tells us, Shayu Yisrael ba'oto ador rishayim. The Jews of that generation were wicked. V'lo hayu rotzim latzeit. And they didn't want to leave Egypt. So they died during the 3 days of darkness. So that the Egyptians wouldn't witness their downfall, and say they're dying just like us. But so that would have been the first 3 days. And during the second 3 days, the Jewish people were searching for the utensils of the Egyptians. And when the Egyptians departed, they're going to ask the Egyptians for their vessels. And the Egyptians would say, we have nothing. He would say to them, he say, I've seen your possessions. So that's why they needed the second 3 days. But why the first 3 days? Why did they need 3 days for people to die? People could have died in 1 day. But basically there are 2 reasons Rashi's giving for 3 days of darkness. The first 3 days is for the Israelites to die, and for the second 3 days is to search for the possessions.
Maybe to give them a chance to be Chozer B'Tshuva.
No, but they died during the first 3 days. They didn't
That's
die
what I'm
during
saying.
the
So you see your neighbor dying, and you ask his wife, was he a believer or not? And then you have 2 days to think about it if you still wants to,
You could
go
say
out
that,
with
but I don't know. And also, yeah. Okay, yes, Jerry, what were you saying?
The Jews were trespassing into the houses of the Egyptians. Isn't this an avera to trespass when you're not invited?
So the Gemara has that question. The Gemara, I'm trying to remember where the Gemara was. Maybe it was in, I don't remember the exact citation of the Gemara. I remember where it is on the page. It's on Amud Aleph, 2/3 of the way down on the page, but I don't remember the Masechta. It's like in Daf Pei, so maybe it's in Masechta Shabbos. I don't remember where the Gemara is. And one of the Egyptians said, "Give us back all the money that you took from us when you left Egypt." So the Jews responded in the time of the Gemara. They said, "Okay, we'll give you back the money when you pay us for the 210 years we served you in Egypt. You owe us back wages with interest." So yeah, they were taking the money that was owed to them.
Okay, good.
Okay, so then Shloshes Yamim. Now we have the next Rashi, which is the Dibur Maskil of 3 days. Shirush Shal Yamim, a threesome of days. V'chein Shivat Yamim B'kol Makom is a setine of days. What Rashi is saying is it's a 3-line rhyme. Shloshes Yamim. Okay. So this is a powerful idea that Rashi didn't want the Egyptians to see the Jews dying. Rashi didn't want the Egyptians to see the Jews dying. Vayikra Paro al Moshe. Pharaoh called to Moses and he said, "L'chu avdu et Hashem, go serve Hashem. Rak tzonchemu v'karchem yutzag. Gam tabchem yilech imachem." So Pharaoh called to Moshe and he said, "Go and serve Hashem. Just leave your sheep and your cattle here, but you can also take your babies." Now, why didn't Moshe take that deal? That sounds like a pretty good deal. I mean, really, what sacrifices did they even make for the first? They didn't. I mean, how many sheep and cattle did they need? Hashem was going to give them money. But Rashi says, "Yeh mutzag bimkomo," keep it in its place. Vayomer Moshe gam ata titein biyadenu zvachem va'orot v'asinu Hashem Elokeinu. Moshe says, not only are we taking our sheep and cattle, you're going to also give us sheep and cattle that we're going to make for Hashem our God. Rashi says, "Lo dayacha shemiknenu yelech imanu." Now it's not sufficient that our cattle will go with us. Elagam mishachat titein. Not only are you going to give, not only are we taking our livestock, but you're also going to give us animals of your own to sacrifice. Rashi says, "V'gam mignenu," verse 26. "V'gam mignenu yelech imanu lo tishaer parsa." Good afternoon, Reb David. So he says, also we're going to take our cattle. We're not going to leave back a parsa. So chapter 10, verse 26, he said, we're going to take our cattle. We're not going to leave back one hoof because we're going to take from them to serve God. And we don't know what we're going to need until we get there.
What a great way of embracing the mystery.
Yeah, I agree with that. That Moshe is saying, we don't know. We don't know what we're going to need when we worship. Maybe God is going to ask something. Rashi says, with parsa means a parsa srego, a hoof. Any animal that doesn't have a split hoof is not kosher. And then Rashi says, lo nedam manavod. We don't know. Kama techpar avodah. We don't know how hard the worship will be. Shema Yeshayu Sermi Mashi Yesh Biyadenu. Maybe God is going to ask for us more than we had anticipated. Beautiful verse. Vayachazek Hashem Mislev Paro. So the plague of darkness is a very, very powerful plague, because the plague of darkness is from all of the plagues, the plague that I feel like is around when somebody is in a state like Paro, that he's unable to release it, to see correctly. He's unable to get out of his own way. He keeps making bad mistake after the other. He's really just in a plague of darkness. So that's what I think. God strengthened Pharaoh's heart, and he didn't want to send them out. Now there's a very powerful verse. Get out of here, he says. Guard yourself. Don't continue to see my face. On the day you see my face, you'll die. You trying to say something there? Okay, fine. Okay. So then the verse tells us, Moshe says, you spoke correctly. I won't see your face again. Rashi says, Yafeh dibarto, ubizmano dibarta, emesh lo asif ro'os panecha. You spoke correctly. Truthfully, I won't see your face again. Okay, next verse, chapter 11. Vayomer Hashem Moshe. God says to Moses, O nega echad avi al Paro. One more plague I'll bring on Paro. Val Mitzrayim, and on the Egyptians. Achrei chen yishalach aslem mizeh. And after this one more plague, I will send you forth kishalcho kala. Yishalach aslem mizeh. God says to Moshe, one more plague I will bring on Paro in Egypt, and afterward he will send you out from this. And when he sends you forth, kala, be complete. He will divorce you. Rashi says kala means gemira. Kalil, completely. Kulchem yishalach. Chapter 11, verse 2. Daber nabaz ne'aham. Okay, this is a very important verse. Speak to in the ears of the people, Bishalu ish me'imreyehu, and everybody should ask from his friend, the isha me'etreuta klei kasef klei zahav. So everybody has to ask for gold and silver before they leave from their friends. What's the reasoning behind this? Let's see what Rashi says. Let's see. Judah, you had a question?
Well, why would it say friends when they were subjugated to them? Why is that word friends?
Question. So I think maybe I mistranslated it. The word re'eo means his friend. It does mean a friend. And in fact, the first time the word friend appears in the Torah, I'll share with you something that my son Rowie told me on Friday when he gave me a Dvar Torah. The first time friend appears in the Torah, well, this is not what he shared with me. Does anybody know the first friend in the Torah? I tell you, Adulami. Judah went down to see his friend Adulami in chapter 38 of Genesis. After his wife died, his friend was there to comfort him. And then this is what Rowie told me, that when it says Mizmor LeDavid Hashem Ro'i Lo Echsar, the Psalm of David, Hashem is it's often translated as my shepherd, but the word there is Ro'i, could be my friend. God is my friend, I will not lack. So Re'eu really does mean a friend. So maybe the Jews were friends with the Egyptians. Pharaoh was enslaving them, but they were friends, or maybe they were acquaintances. I don't know, but it's a very good question.
No, they say the slave will have a boss.
So it means from his boss. Okay.
Steinzel said they maintained relationships with their neighbors.
They maintained relationships. That's your question. Very nice. Very nice. So he says, go speak in the ears of the people. Rashi says, Eina Lashon Bakasha, means making a request. Bivakasha mimcha, Hazirai Makach. Ask them for the vessels. Shalo Yomer Oso Tzadik Avram, V'Avadum V'Inu Osam Kiyemahem. So on a simple level, why do they need it? He's saying because we don't want Abraham to say you fulfilled with them the verse that says that you will enslave them, but not the verse that says that they're going to get a lot of possessions when they leave. Jerry, you had a question.
Yes, this statement should be after Pharaoh, after the firstborns are dead, they have died, and Pharaoh says, "Get the hell out of here." And it's that point that the Jews could go to the neighbors and say, "We're getting out of here," and the neighbors could say, "Yeah, get out of here and take our jewels." So
Right.
this pasuk may be out of place.
Well, Moshe's telling them now that there's going to come a time where you're going to have to do this. That's what Moshe's saying.
I see. Okay.
So Rashi's bothered why does the Torah use the expression daber na? Please ask them. Like, who are you doing a favor for? What's the favor? So therefore, the favor is because I don't want to look bad in the eyes of Abraham. The Talmud says, that the Jews said to Moses, why should we ask for their valuables? We'd rather just go free ourselves. And this is the Talmud says, it's like somebody who's in prison and says, tomorrow some people will set you free from prison and they'll give you a lot of money. And the person in prison says, I beg of you, let me just get out today and I don't need your money. Okay. Back to verse 3. God put the favor of the people in the eyes of Egypt. Does that sound a little bit like a verse from the book of Esther? That the man Moses was very great in the eyes in the land of Egypt, in the eyes of Pharaoh, and the eyes of the people. Why did he need to be great? That was the purpose of the plague, to make Moses appear great. Vayomer Moshe, and Moshe said, Ko amar Hashem, thus says God, Kachatzos halayla ani yotzei betoch Mitzrayim. Moshe says to God, thus Moshe said, this is what Hashem said, like the middle of the night, around the middle of the night, I'm going to go out in the middle of Egypt. Why does God speak like this? Vayomer Moshe, Moshe said, thus says Hashem. Rashi tells us a very important Rashi. This prophecy was said to Moses while he was standing in front of Pharaoh. Because once he left, so Moshe is speaking to Pharaoh, Rashi is telling us he didn't go back and say it because he said, I'm never going to see you again. So he said this to Pharaoh the last time he was there. And Pharaoh said, you're not going to see me again. He said, okay. He says, Kachatzos halayla. What does that mean at midnight? Kechelek halayla. When the night is divided. Kachatzos kemo ba'alos. Zel pshuto liyashvo afanav she'en chatzos shem davar shachatzi. Mean to say, it means in the middle of the night when you divide the night. But then Rashi tells us, very, very often quoted Rashi, what does it mean? At approximately midnight. That Moshe said at approximately midnight, Moshe said around midnight. And he didn't say at midnight. Why? Shema Yitu, it's to Gnei Paro. The Yomer Moshe Badayu. Moshe was worried that the Egyptians weren't going to have an iPhone, which is going to tell them the exact time. They didn't have the satellite clocks. So they're going to say, God said he's coming at midnight. What?
You didn't get it right.
They're going to say God got the time wrong. They're going to say God got the time wrong. And so therefore, for this reason, Moshe said, God's coming at midnight, but I'm telling you it's around midnight because we can't deal with the Egyptian incompetence. But God who said, God knows times precisely, and therefore it says Bachatzos in midnight. Okay, very nice.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Before when we talked about Reyehu and that they were neighbors and they asked them for their silver and gold.
Yeah.
Why is this happening after Hoshep when they just took everything? Like, what is the second to ask?
No. Okay, they didn't, during the 3 days of darkness, when they were looking through their friends, they were looking through the Egyptians' possessions, but they didn't take it. Then they went and asked for it before they left Egypt.
So it was never stolen?
Well, they asked for it later, but not during the 3 days of darkness. During the 3 days of darkness, they were picking out what they wanted. They had full access to their wardrobe. That's what Rashi says. Because then the Egyptians had it dark. They couldn't see anything that the Jews could see.
Okay, and you said the first 3 days was to kill the Israelites that had to weed them out because they were just not good enough?
Exactly, they died. Rashi tells us in Bashalach that it was 80%.
Yeah, how many?
80% of the people.
And what percentage did that leave us?
20.
No, of the actual amount of Israelites.
Well, they could do the math. If there were 600,000 men,
Right.
so it's the math is, I guess, 3 million men between the ages of 20 and 60, and only 600,000 survived.
Did it say, it's interesting because I never knew that there was a commentary on how many killed. Do we know how many Egyptians were killed, like throughout all these plagues? Like, it seems like we're killing a lot of people and like, do we have any idea of like how much damage and, what the numbers were?
I don't have any idea. Rashi says that their soldiers all died, the whole army died, and the horses and the chariots, but it doesn't tell us how many Egyptians died.
Like per plague, like what were we talking about?
I haven't seen that in Rashi.
I haven't seen it anywhere ever.
Yeah. Well,
but what you
the
just
only
said about
time we've
the
seen
600,000 men, that means that there were no women who died during the Hoshep.
No. That's no. I said 600,000 men plus the women. Rashi says 80% of the Jews did not go out. You say no women. I assume that the women also died.
I'm just saying that they never sinned with anything else. Maybe.
You never. Otherwise, we'd have a lot of women that didn't have their families. They weren't mentioned. So I assume that
widows with young children.
I think you're.
I'm asking.
No, I don't agree with that approach. I don't agree. I don't think so. I don't know. Right now it's a little cold in here. No, I'm good.
Talking about death, that's why.
Yeah, okay, fine. So now what is the next verse? Oh, Jerry, yes.
Yes, so just a clarification. You're saying that not only did the firstborn of the Egyptians die, but many, many Jews who were sinners or didn't want to leave also died, and the remnant of the Jews were only 600,000. And so a majority of Jews died along with the Egyptians. Is that what you're saying?
It's not what I'm saying. It's what Rashi says. Rashi says the first 3 days of darkness, the Jews died. And that's when Rashi says in Parashas Peshalach, that says that the Chamushim Olu, that 1/5 went up. It's to teach us that only 20% of the Jews went out and the other 80% died in the plague of darkness. Now, if you think that the rest of the Jews didn't want to leave Egypt, what does died mean? Here, what I think it means is, it means they spiritually died. They were lost from the Jewish people forever. They could have gone out and been part of the redemption, but they decided to stay in Egypt. Now, when you think about that, it's crazy. Think about if the Exodus came to America today and we said where the Messiah has arrived, how many would come? Do you think 20% of the Jews? Not even. I'm not making a joke. Not even 20%. No chance. And I would say that 90% would say, listen, I got my, I'm good.
Carpet.
I'm good. I got my, whatever. I got my 401k. I don't need your Messiah. So Moshe Rabbeinu was rejected by 80% of the Jews.
So your interpretation, it was the spiritual death that Hashem didn't physically kill the Jews. Because with those numbers, and I'd never heard the percentage, it certainly doesn't seem as grand of a redemption of Bnei Israel to only take 20% of the Jews out of Mitzrayim.
Well, hold on 1 second. Now, Seth is bringing up a good point, but whenever we speak like this, hold on, don't go anywhere, don't go anywhere.
All right, boys, we have a situation. We have a lot of.
It's very possible that very quickly for
I'm gonna pull out the Rebbe.
All right.
I'm gonna pull out the Lubavitcher Rebbe because this is Judah. We gotta pull out the Rebbe here. See what the Rebbe says about this, about the plague of darkness and people dying. So we'll pull this out, see if the Rebbe adds anything here. Chapter 11 of it. The Rebbe always comments on Rashi. So,
Rabbi.
oh, chapter.
Certainly more palatable answer. than
Chapter
the
11 is already.
that haven't sort of let them go to the bottom of the, 49th level of two
Oh,
and just die.
Oh, here's what the Rebbe says. The Rebbe says as follows. The Rebbe says in chapter 10, verse 23, during these first 3 days, the Israelites who did not want to leave Egypt, 4/5, this is how he translates it. During the first 3 days, the Israelites who did not want to leave Egypt, 4/5 of the population died. This happened specifically when the Egyptians could not see it. So they should not be able to think that these Jews were dying of the same cause that the Egyptians died of during the plague. So the Rebbe writes, God did not force those Jews who did not want to leave Egypt to do so. By choosing to remain in Egypt, these individuals denied the purpose of their existence. Their lives lost all meaning and had spiritually ended. Basically what I said, that their lives had spiritually ended. The connection between God and the Jewish people in Egypt was similar to the natural connection between parent and child. In God's own words to Pharaoh, my firstborn son in Israel is Israel, and I'm telling you to send forth my son. Parents and children are bound to each other naturally and inseparably. Nonetheless, a child can choose not to honor this connection and rebel against his parents. And then the Rebbe goes on to speak very mystically, but basically what the Rebbe is saying is that it was a spiritual death. So that's the Rebbe. Rebbe says it's a spiritual death, yeah.
So along with the spiritual death, they continue to